rest up. Okay.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. The sun has power and so do we.
We're gonna let it shine. The sun has power and so do we. We're gonna let it shine.
The sun has power and so do we.
We're gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
Shouting no to fossil fuels.
We're gonna let it shine. Shouting no to fossil fuels. We're gonna let it shine. Shouting no to fossil fuels. We're gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
Climate justice is our call.
We're gonna let it shine.
Climate justice is our call. We're gonna let it shine. Climate justice is our call. We're gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
Friends, peace be with you. Before you are welcomed into this sacred space by its hosts, I want us to repeat something we tried outside. If you would call in response the full line after me, the full line, not the also be with you, but just the full line. So would you repeat after me? Peace be with you.
Peace be with you.
Sun be with you.
Sun be with you.
Wind be with you.
Wind be with you.
Power be with you.
Power be with you.
People be with you.
People be with you.
May it be so. Amen. Dean Amy McCreath, I would like to say hello to. I can't welcome her. This is her house, but I'm grateful for her having us over. Reverend Dean Amy McCreath.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy McCreath. I serve as the dean here at the Cathedral Church of St. Paul. I'm so glad to see you all this afternoon. Thank you for braving Patriots' Day weekend and the crowds on the T and the weather to be here to do something so important so beautiful, so holy, and to receive a good word from our friend Bill McKibben. This is a house of prayer for all people, and today you are all people, and everyone is welcome here. And this is a place where we try to live into our values of welcome, courage, justice, and joy. And the work that we're here to be inspired for requires all four. Amen? Amen. So let me just do a little bit of housekeeping so that you can have a really great experience here. So there are restrooms downstairs. You can use the elevator to access them or go down the staircase. There's also an all-gender bathroom through the door over here and up the stairs. There's a bubbler downstairs. I'm from the Midwest. It's a bubbler. For water, and if you need anything else, please let us know. We have some greeters in the back, and I'll be around. And I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful experience here and come back early and often. In fact, you could come back next Sunday when we're hosting an event called Faithful Resistance, which is a training for people who are feeling the Spirit calling them to speak up a bit more loudly and more effectively in these very challenging times. It will train people around mutual aid, around resistance singing. You'll learn some songs, and around non-cooperation tactics. And it is co-sponsored with Episcopal City Mission and the Massachusetts Council of Churches. There's flyers in the back, and would love to see you here then. And with that, it is my great pleasure and honor to turn the microphone over to the Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Massachusetts. We're so thankful that she can be here today to pray us into this event, the Right Reverend Julia Whitworth.
Good afternoon, friends. It is my joy to join Dean Amy in welcoming you to this holy space. We hope that you will come again and again. Often, Dean McCreath will talk about the history of this cathedral, which was set here for an occasion just like this, when we want to be at the center of the city, talking about, praying about, working for the most central matters of our time. And this is a time to gather and talk, pray, and act about central matters like the fate of our earth and our own commitment to protect it. In my tradition, in the Episcopal Church, we have what's called a baptismal covenant, and we rehearse it again and again and again. We recite our statements of faith and our promises about how we live into them. And historically, those have been very person-centered. So we have a wonderful piece of our baptismal covenant where we commit ourselves to promote the dignity of every human being. And it's central to how I, and God willing, all of us try to live into our faith, and particularly our commitment to care for all of God's human beings, no matter their religion, no matter their gender, no matter their sexual orientation or gender identity, immigrant status. We work for justice. But the framers of our baptismal covenant overlooked another central matter, which is care for all of creation, not just human beings. And so we've added, some of us have added to our baptismal covenant. Technically, it's not all the way allowable yet, but we'll get there. Don't tell anyone. The following commitment. Will you cherish the wondrous works of God and protect and restore the beauty and integrity of all creation? Will you cherish the wondrous works of God and protect and restore the beauty of all creation? We will. So if you do the God thing, we answer it We will with God's help. And if you don't, we will works really well, or we will with one another's help, because this is best work done together. So I'll ask you one more time, answer it how you wish. Will you cherish the wondrous works of God and protect and restore the beauty and integrity of all creation? Amen. Now I invite you to pray with me. Let us pray. God of all creation, maker of earth and air, oceans and forests, of every creature that walks, swims, burrows, and soars, we gather today from many paths, many traditions, many names for you, and yet with one shared breath, one home, one urgent hope. We stand on this day with gratitude and with grief, grateful for the beauty which still astonishes us, and grieving what has been diminished, exploited, and lost. We confess in our hearts and in the company of one another that we have not been faithful stewards. We have mistaken domination for care, consumption for flourishing, and convenience for wisdom. And yet, Holy One, you have not withdrawn your presence from the world you love. In every tradition gathered here, in every tradition throughout your world, there are stories of creation spoken into being with intention and delight, of humanity formed not as owners but as kin, bound in relationship with soil and water, with one another, and with you. Give us courage to tell the truth about the wounds of this planet, to name injustice where it falls hardest on the poor, on the vulnerable, and on generations yet to come. Give us humility to listen to scientists and to elders, to indigenous wisdom and to youthful voices, to the quiet testimony of the natural world itself. Give us imagination to live differently, to choose restoration over extraction, sufficiency over excess, community over isolation. For this work is not only policy and protest, though it is both, it is also practice. The daily choosing of reverence, the steady work of repair, the refusal to give up on a future which we may not fully see. Gather us, God, across our differences into a shared commitment to protect this earth, our island home, and to promote peace for all your creatures. May we become together a people who heal what is broken, who tend what has been entrusted, and who leave not a diminished world, but one which is just and flourishing. Amen.
Hello, all. We are members of Be Vocal, Boston Voices of Community and Labor, and we are so honored to be part of the program here today. Yes. And we are not here to sing for you, but to sing with you. So, that note, we are going to teach you a beautiful song that written by Heidi Wilson, but we've learned it from the singing resistance in Minnesota, incredibly inspiring. And we're going to teach you how it goes. The words are simple. Just listen for a minute. It's just hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. And I'm actually going to teach you the melody as well. I'm going to lead, you'll help follow with them. Okay. Hold on, just listen. Hold on. Let's do that much. Hold on. Hold on. Sounds incredible. Next line. Just listen. My dear ones, here comes the dawn. My dear ones, here comes Excellent. We're going to put that together one time through. You ready? And hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Beautiful. We're going to be singing it many times through, so join us when you feel ready at any time. If you feel like standing, that's up to you. Are we ready? Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. And again, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Sing it to your neighbor. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Again. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the just you. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Thank you.
Dear ones, be vocal choir. We give it up for them again. Thank you all. Reverend Amy has reminded or informed us that the balcony is open if anyone would like a seat. The stairs are just this way and up, I believe, and there are folks already up there. And also, this is being live streamed through the World Wide Web, thanks to the Cathedral Church of St. Paul's YouTube page. So if you know how to use that World Wide Web, look to a younger person if you don't. Like, I need to find someone who can help me. YouTube, Church Cathedral Church of St. Paul's, and you can get the live stream. You can pass that along.
Committee of Third Act, Massachusetts, which, by the way, was founded by Bill McKibben, and we are one of the sponsors of this event. The other hat I'm wearing is from Boston Interfaith Climate Allies. We go by BICA for short, because it's much easier to say. And we are a group of about a dozen faith communities who have come together because we care about this earth, this environment, this climate, and we want to find ways to work together to do what we can to make a change in that. So that's who we are. Our other sponsors today are Mass Interfaith Power and Light, the Green Faith, Boston Catholic Climate Movement, and Boston Earth Day. And they're all here today, and they all join me in welcoming all of you. I have the honor to introduce you to Bill McKibben. My guess is that most of the people in this room know who Bill McKibben is, and you may have even met him. But he's our leader in environmental justice and has been doing that for many years. He's led us, he has written for us, he has educated us, he's been a leader, and we are so grateful. He's a prolific writer. I'm amazed at what he does. The latest book is Here Comes the Sun, and if you haven't read it, I totally recommend it. It's just an awesome book that talks about reality but gives you lots of hope, and so it's a very positive read. I read him in The New Yorker. I read his Crucial Years. Every time I read him, I feel I learned something and I'm inspired by him. And speaking of inspiration, we think that after you hear Bill's words of wisdom, you're going to be inspired to do something. And so we want to direct you to bica.earth, BICA.earth, our website, which has a list of advocacy and lobby things and things you can do tonight, tomorrow, whenever you can, that you'll feel so inspired to do. So please do that. And now, I want to welcome this New Englander to you. He was born and raised in Lexington, and he lives in Vermont. Now, that couldn't be more New England than that. So, with that, I welcome Bill.
Well, Daddy, thank you for that kind introduction, and what a pleasure to be here. I came down on the bus from Vermont today, across a soggy New England. I'm headed back on the bus to New Haven later this afternoon. I'm a Methodist, so this kind of circuit riding is sort of natural, but it is a great pleasure to be in the embrace of the Episcopalians today. Many thanks to Dean McCready and to Bishop Whitworth. I confess that when I think of the spiritual center of New England, my mind naturally turns toward Fenway Park, but I have been watching from a distance the No Kings rallies and things out here on the Common, and it's clear that this church and its welcoming steps have become an absolute center of how New England is coming to terms with the moment in which we live. And so many thanks to this church and to all the churches in the Interfaith Climate Alliance and everybody else who's doing this good work. So I'm going to talk for a little while today, and I am going to try and end up in a hopeful place. But that's not where I'm going to start, because we start with reality and we work towards what we're going to do about that reality. And the reality of the moment is very difficult on at least two fronts. I wrote what people generally now call the first book about the climate crisis back in the 1980s. Back then we called it the greenhouse effect. And the things that I warned about in The End of Nature are now all come true. And they've come true in the more quickly and more harshly even than we would have predicted 40 years ago. And so we look around us every day and see the toll someplace or another. The climate is changing very, very, very fast on this planet now. And some of the indications of that are the things that we're very used to seeing and are very visible and obvious. The extraordinary fires that break out place after place because warm air holds more water vapor than cold, and so in arid areas you get more evaporation, and then when fire comes, it comes with a vengeance. It comes so frequently now that I think we've almost begun to tune it out. It was only 15 months ago that huge sections of the second largest city in this country burned to the ground in a firestorm the likes of which we've never seen, but we've almost put that out of our mind. It was 3 weeks ago that a giant inferno engulfed huge parts of Nebraska, the biggest fire that we've ever seen in that state, and very, very early in the year. It shouldn't have come as any surprise, because despite our beautiful throwback old school winter in the Northeast, this was the second hottest winter on record for the United States. 14 states in the western U.S. had their hottest winter ever, and it was accompanied by an astonishing lack of precipitation. There's essentially no snowpack across the Sierras and the Rockies, and everybody there is now looking over their shoulder with some real trepidation, because there's no doubt that there will follow fire as night follows day in too many places. Once that water is up in the air, of course, it comes down again, and it comes down in deluge and flood, and we see that flood over and over now in place after place again, so that we sometimes begin not to quite even give it the notice that we should, unless it's hitting us directly. Vermont, where I live, has had terrible floods in 2 of the last 3 years. So I've been paying some attention, and I remember watching after the last set of floods finally dried up in Vermont. A week or 2 later, the extraordinary rains moved to Africa, north of Africa. And there, the rain came down so hard in Libya that they washed out 2 big dams along the main river, and then in the course of an hour washed 10,000 people out to sea, where they drowned in an hour. A kind of biblical scene, but the kind of thing that happens all too often now in the poorest parts of the world that have done by far the least to cause the scourge that we now experience. Forget Libya, all of Africa has put about 3% of the greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Compared with this country, which has 4% of the world's population, but it's responsible for 1/4 of all the greenhouse gases up in the air. So when we read about those tragedies, it is incumbent upon us to remind ourselves that they are our tragedies more than anybody else's. And we're going to see more of them no matter what we do. We're going to see more of them this year. The meteorologists are now quite confident that there is forming across the Pacific an El Nino warm wave that may be the largest of these El Ninos that we've ever seen, and will certainly, because the base temperature keeps being driven up by climate change, produce this year and next the highest temperatures that humans have ever dealt with in our career on this planet. We will set new record global temperatures, and with those will come yet more chaos of all kinds. That chaos is beginning to now reach out and touch not just the surface of the planet, but its most deep and powerful systems. And this is really, really scary. Just to give the most pertinent local example, not very far out in the Atlantic Ocean, there are a series of enormous currents like the Gulf Stream that serve as the biggest heat distribution engine on the planet. We call these all together the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Currents, or AMOC. And we've long worried that as we raise the temperature, this enormous heat distribution system would begin to break down. Because there's a lot of ice up north in the Arctic, and it's freshwater when it formed on the surface of the ocean or on the great ice sheets of Greenland. It precipitated out the salt, so it's freshwater. When it melts and pours into the North Atlantic, it changes the salinity and hence the density of the seawater, and it's that density that drives these huge currents that stretch back to the equator. There are a series of new studies this year indicating that that breakdown is now underway. And there was a paper 3 days ago that led the senior scientist in all of this, a man named Johan Rockström in Europe, to say we now face a greater than 50% chance of the collapse of this current in the lifetimes of people alive on this planet now. If it happens, that is a civilizational scale event. It will instantly make Western and Northern Europe far, far colder than they are now, at the same time piling huge amounts of heat up back towards the equator, producing the conditions for a kind of violent chaos that we've never seen, and in fact, no human has ever seen. So the stakes are extraordinarily high, and the time to meet them is extraordinarily short. We're used to thinking of change on a geological scale happening over eons and millions of years and on and on and on. But that's not what's happening here. This is happening in real time. We're pouring carbon into the atmosphere far, far faster than even the most extreme outbreaks of volcanism in the geological record poured carbon into the atmosphere. And it was those outbreaks of volcanism at periods of about 100 million years that produced the great mass extinctions, the 5 of them that have so far happened on this Earth. We're now precipitating the 6th. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change told us a few years ago that if we had any hope of even beginning to meet anything like the targets that we set in Paris just a decade ago, that we needed to cut emissions in half by 2030, which by my watch is now 3 years and 7 months away, okay? So we have a lot of work to do. And second big problem, we have to do that work in a country and in a world that's increasingly under the sway of authoritarian forces. I'm not going to spend a whole huge amount of time talking politics today. I sense that this is a crowd that is already in agreement with me on these issues. But just suffice it to say, at Third Act, we've been sort of doing a series of videos the last couple of weeks with the oldest members of our coalition, people in their 80s and 90s and hundreds, on the theory, some of whom are too old now to get out in the street, but still very much want to be heard. And the theory is that we're approaching our 250th anniversary here. So if you are 83, and there are probably one or two people in this room who've passed that mark, if you're 83, you've been around for 1/3 of American history, which confers upon you some legitimacy to say this is a very weird time, okay? Very different from all the times that have come in our lifetime before. There have been lots of presidents I didn't like, but there's never been anything like this happen. And to talk to these people and to listen to them is really powerful. To hear people say, when I was 4 years old, my sister died of polio. How crazy is it now that we're messing around with vaccines, or, on and on and on. And at the root of a lot of that authoritarianism is the dire impact of the fossil fuel industry. The reason that the Koch brothers spent the last 30 years undermining the foundations of American democracy so that Donald Trump could kick them over was because the Koch brothers were the biggest oil and gas barons in our country and wanted no regulation. If you read, thank you very much. If you read the remarkable investigation in the New York Times 3 days ago, it turns out that the true corruption of the Supreme Court, their willingness to now decide case after case on what they call the shadow docket without actual debate or argument, stems from the case where they decided to, in that fashion, overturn Obama's Clean Power Plan at the behest of the oil industry, which was terrified that someone was actually starting to stand up to them. So, we're faced with these two big, very bad things happening at once and in concert. The rise of a kind of authoritarian system and the rise of the planet's temperature in ways that threaten all of us and everything that we care about. In the face of that, there's one big good thing happening on this planet. And it's happening simultaneously, and it is the dramatic surge in clean energy over the last 36 months or so on planet Earth. About 5 years ago, we finally crossed some invisible line where it became cheaper to produce power from the sun and the wind than from setting things on fire, coal, gas, oil. That's an epochal moment in human history. We've been happily setting things on fire for a good 700,000 years. Darwin said that language and fire were the two things that set our species apart. And, for the most part, fire, a pretty good idea. We learned to cook food. That gave us the big brain. Debatable whether that was a good idea or not, but there we have it. It let us move north and south from the equator. Nobody living in New England prior to fire. The anthropologists think that standing around the campfire every night for eons even helps explain some of the social bonds that mark our species now. I've been explaining this to young people as a kind of proto-Zoom, for humans. And then when we learn to burn coal and gas and oil, that's what we call the Industrial Revolution, and it gave us modernity, everything around us. But now the cost of that is too high. I have detailed the cost to the climate system. It's not the only cost. 9 million human beings die each year from breathing the combustion byproducts of fossil fuel. That's 1 death in 5. There are 5 million school children in New Delhi. 2.5 million of them have irreversible lung damage from breathing the air, okay? So it would be very nice to get off this stuff if we could. And we can. The last 36 months have seen this surge that I've described in ways that are truly remarkable, faster than any technological change we've ever seen on this planet. Now, we don't feel it quite as much here because it's not headquartered here. It's headquartered in China, which has put up about half the clean energy on the planet in the last few years. And in China, they're building this stuff so fast that it's almost unbelievable. This time last year, the Chinese were putting up 3 gigawatts of solar power a day. A gigawatt is the rough equivalent of a large coal-fired power plant. So they were building one of those out of solar panels every 8 hours, okay? As a result, they have more and more and more clean energy to do lots of stuff with. One of the things they're doing with it is quickly transitioning their vehicle fleet, buses, trucks, and cars to electricity. Half the cars sold in China last year came with a plug. And as a result, those Chinese cities, Shanghai, Beijing, the rest, that 10 years ago were the 10 cities at the top of the list of the dirtiest cities on the planet. When you went there, and I went there many times, you couldn't see across the street. They're no longer anywhere near the top of that list. They've dropped way down. Those cities are basically clean like ours are now. In fact, when I talk to friends there now, what they tell me is not only are they clean, but the other striking thing is over the last year or two how quiet they have become because most of the cars are running silently on electricity. And we can see this happening lots of other places around the world. California has taken this seriously. They've now put up enough sun and wind that power that most days they get more than 100% of their electricity from long stretches of the day from renewable energy. Basically, from about 8 o'clock in the morning till about 6:30 at night, California mostly runs on sunshine. And then when the sun goes down, California now increasingly runs on huge batteries that spent the afternoon soaking up excess sunshine, as it were. Those batteries didn't even exist 3 years ago. But here's the bottom line from that. Remember I told you we needed to reduce emissions 40% by 2030, and that sounded to you impossible when I said it. California is using 60% less natural gas to produce electricity now than they were 3 years ago. That's a sign of the kind of change that is at least theoretically possible if we move. And not just in China, where they have a vigorous government, and not just in California, where they have a lot of money. Some of the most remarkable transformations are happening in some of the poorest places in the world. Pakistan has been a kind of remarkable story. Pakistan hit harder by climate change than any country on Earth, I would say. Its summertime urban temperatures now routinely top 125 degrees. In 2010 and 2023, they had the 2 worst floods this planet has seen since Noah, okay? And yet, they have one geographical advantage, which is a border with China, across which, about 18 months ago, people began to import vast quantities of cheap Chinese solar panels. Guys who used to be in the rice importing business or the cement importing business got in this business instead. Pakistan has unreliable and expensive electricity, so there was a ready market. It wasn't a government program. It was people scraping together the funds to buy these things and then going on YouTube and watching videos about how to hook them up. In 18 months, individual Pakistanis have built the equivalent of half the country's national electric grid up on their rooftops. Out in the hinterlands, where peasant farmers' biggest budget item is usually the diesel to drive their irrigation pumps. They're using 30% less of that diesel than they were a year ago because they've gone and put up so many solar panels. They often lack the money to build the steel scaffolding we're used to seeing in a solar farm. Never mind, they're just laying them on the ground and pointing them at the sun. Now this is happening in the last 8 months or so across Africa. And you can almost follow, like, if you know where the Chinese trade routes are, you know, the strong ones across that continent, you can see this happening place after place after place. It's bringing power to millions of people for the first time who've never had it, and it's replacing the dirty, expensive, dangerous, and noisy diesel generators that have supplied what power there is across large, large parts of that continent. The only place that's installing solar power faster than Africa right now is the island of Cuba, where, facing a total oil embargo, they're desperately trying as fast as they can to. I don't think they're going to be able to do it fast enough to ward off the crisis that we are daily trying to provoke there, but they are trying, and that is their main tool. So this is a potentially remarkable, remarkable change. And it not only gives us our first hope, not of stopping global warming, it is too late for that, but at least of shaving tenths of a degree off how hot the planet eventually gets, and every tenth of a degree that we raise the temperature moves another 100 million of our brothers and sisters from a safe climate zone to a perilous one. So this is still the biggest thing we could possibly be at work on. Not only does it help there, and not only does it help with the air that people have to breathe, it also helps a lot with the political climate that I was describing before. Because as long as we depend on a resource that's only available in a few places, then the people who control those places end up with way more wealth and power than they should, which they routinely abuse. Vladimir Putin, the biggest oil and gas baron in Europe, using his winnings to launch a land war on that continent in the 21st century. The king of Saudi Arabia, President Trump, who attacked Venezuela. Give him credit. He made not even the slightest effort to pretend that it was about democracy or human rights or anything else. He just said, you have oil, we want it, we're taking it. And we did. And now we've attacked the country with the third largest oil reserves on the planet, Iran. And we've managed in the process to demonstrate again what folly it is to be relying on things that are only available in a few places. People always say, sun and wind, they're intermittent sources of power. You can't rely on them. That's actually no longer even remotely true. Batteries have made them essentially around-the-clock sources of power. But what's very clear in our world is that oil and gas are intermittent sources of power that depend on whether the Iranians are firing drones today or not at the tankers. Sunlight has to travel 93 million miles to reach the Earth, but none of those miles are through the Strait of Hormuz, okay? And so this is potentially the best of news, liberating in so many ways to imagine people able to take control of their own destinies in a new way and shake off some of these oligarchs. Great news unless you own an oil well or a coal mine. And then it's an existential threat that you will do whatever you need to in order to ward off. And that's what we are seeing in our country right now. You'll remember that candidate Trump explained to big oil executives that if they gave him $1 billion, he would give them anything that they wanted. They gave him about $500 million between donations and advertising and lobbying in the last election cycle, and that was plenty. He's given them, I think, more than they even imagined they would get. I don't think any rational person thought that he would try to shut down wind farms off the coast of New England that were 90% complete, put all federal lands off limits to solar panels. You may have missed it in the news, but 3 weeks ago, President Trump agreed to send $1 billion of our tax money in order to buy back the leases from companies that had won leases to develop more wind power off the eastern seaboard, just to make sure that wind would never be captured for our use. Now, Donald Trump can't, by himself, stop this change. It's not like he's Jesus Christ or something. But he is doing his very best to slow it down. And that kind of delay is the one thing that we just can't abide, because we have to move quickly here. That's the point. That's what the science tells us more insistently every day. And so our job is to figure out how to catalyze this reaction, how to make this thing that's already begun to happen faster, fast enough to at least begin to catch up a little bit with the physics of climate change. And that's what y'all are about. That requires all of us figuring out how to be as effective political actors as we can to make this change speed up. And doing it right here at home, because right here in America is where the problem is the worst. Pakistanis don't need any help. They've figured it out. They're hard at work doing what needs to be done. But Pakistanis don't produce that much CO2, it must be said. The work has to be done here. And so that's what we've been trying to do some of recently in lots of ways. Some of you will recall that we crowded in about a year ago to Old North Church, just yonder, for a remarkable evening hosted by the fabulous Mayor Wu to launch this Sunday idea. And it was a wonderful evening. And it turned out to be a wonderful thing. 5 months later, in September, we had this first celebration of Sunday across the country. Some of you were at some of the 500 events that marked that day. And in their wake, there's been a huge wave of organizing around solar power. We know we're not naive. We know that for the moment, there's not much we can do in Washington, D.C. We're working hard to change that reality. I trust that everyone here is figuring out how they can help in many ways, make the midterms come out okay. But while we're doing that, there's a lot we can do at the state and local level in all the states where we are to make this change happen. So for instance, at Third Act, we've set up this thing we call the Simplify Solar campaign. And it has two aims. One of them is to make it much easier for Americans to put solar panels on their homes. Americans, if they go out to put a rooftop system on their home, pay 3 times to 5 times as much as Europeans or Australians do to do the same thing. That's not because the panels are more expensive. The tariffs have added a little bit to but the panels themselves are no longer expensive at all. In fact, they're so cheap that in Europe now people are increasingly using solar panels in place of wood for fencing because it's cheaper than buying the wood and because your normal fence doesn't produce energy for you, along the way. It's more expensive here because we have way too much regulation and bureaucracy around it. There are 15,000 jurisdictions, cities, counties, towns in this country. Each one has their own set of rules. They want you to send drawings back and forth. They all want to send teams of people up to crawl around the roof, on and on and on. Look, in most of the world, this is no harder than getting a new refrigerator, okay? You call somebody up on Monday, on Wednesday, they're up on top of the roof putting up solar panels. On Friday, they flip the switch and you're part of this solar revolution. Here, it can take months and cost many, many thousands of dollars. Does that make a difference? Yes. In Australia, because it's easy and hence cheap, 40% of people have solar panels on their roofs. What does that mean? Australia has so much solar power that beginning in June and continuing forever until the end of time, all Australians will get 3 free hours of electricity every afternoon. That's when they're going to run their dishwasher, run their washing machine, plug in their EV, and it's why millions of Australians are currently out there buying storage batteries so they can fill them in the afternoon and run their house all night on free electricity. You want to talk about affordability? Would you like to be able to offer your neighbors 3 free hours of electricity every day? There's a lot of people for whom that would make a lot of difference, okay? The way to do this in this country is relatively straightforward. As is so often the case, there is an app. And this app is called the Solar App Plus, and it was developed by the National Renewable Energies Laboratory before Donald Trump shut that down. And what it does is allow contractors to get an instant permit. They just, your contractor taps in your address, and she taps in the kind of equipment that she wants to install on the roof, and if the database likes it, it just prints her out an instant permit, and then she's up there, hammer in hand, doing the work. California and New Jersey have already done this. It is time for everybody else to get on board and do the same thing. Even simpler, and though not as numerically important, in some ways even more beautiful, is what we're calling balcony or plug-in solar, okay? If you've been to Europe in the last couple of years, you will have seen on millions of apartments across Europe that people have all of a sudden put up these small solar systems. You go to whatever they call Best Buy in Milan, and you put down a few €100, and you come home with a solar panel designed to be not installed on the roof, but zip-tied to the railing of your apartment balcony or just put on the ground in the courtyard or whatever. On the back, it has a plug that you plug into the wall. That is it. No electrician required in any way. And these often produce 20 or 25% of the power that an apartment uses. So not everything, but not nothing either, okay? And they are, at the moment, illegal almost everywhere in this country. Now, the first place to break that barrier was the progressive bastion of Utah, which last spring, the legislature unanimously adopted the rules that made it possible for people to go out and do this. The libertarian Republican state senator who introduced the bill, his entire argument was, if this is good enough for the people of Stuttgart, it's good enough for the people of Salt Lake City, okay? And that's a good argument. In the wake of Sunday, we have managed to get that legislation in front of 28 state legislatures this spring, and one by one, they are doing the right thing. As of 2 weeks ago, it was legal in Virginia. As of last week, it's legal in Maine. As of next week, if the governor signs the bill, it will be legal in Colorado. There is no reason at all that this should not be legal in Massachusetts. It doesn't... It doesn't cost the Commonwealth a penny to do it. All it takes is, for once, Beacon Hill deciding that it might actually do something with some dispatch, instead of just saying, next year we'll get to it, okay? So, see what you all can do. You are seasoned political professionals. You should be able to cause the requisite amount of ruckus to get that done. Now, I'm supposed to stop here in a second, and I will, but not before saying two more things. And one is this question of who should be doing this work. I'll just, since I can look out at you all, I have a reasonable gauge of the demographics of this audience, and I will say that one of the groups of people who should be doing this work is people with hairlines like mine, okay? We started Third Act because there are 70 million Americans over the age of 60. People had said, nobody's tried to organize older people for progressive political change in a long time. And people said it's impossible because people become more conservative as they age. I don't actually think that that's true. If it was ever true, I don't think it's true anymore. And the reason I think it's definitely not true anymore is because if you're in your third act now, your first act, if you're 70s or 80s or something now, your first act was in this moment of incredible cultural, political, social turmoil and liberation that we think of as the 1960s and the 1970s, the apex of the civil rights movement. The moment when we began to take women seriously in public life. The first Earth Day, which saw 20 million Americans, 10% of the then population, out in the street. And within 18 months had given us the whole suite of laws, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, all the things that Donald Trump and the Supreme Court are currently trying to gut so that they can get back to the good old days of polluting everything around them. We know, we have, as a generation, muscle memory to allow us to know that change like that is possible. And so it does not surprise me in the least that when I go to No Kings rallies all across America, there are plenty of people out there of a certain age. We've now discovered in the last 18 months that a walker makes for a very good platform for a placard or a sign, you know? The very first demonstration that we did, and there may be some people in here who were there at Third Act, even as we were just beginning to form, was over in downtown Crossing, and a bunch of high school kids had called up and said, we want to take on these banks. They'd called me up for Fridays for the Future, Greta's kind of offshoot group. We want to take on these banks, Citibank, so on, that are the big funders of fossil fuel. But they won't listen to us because we don't have checking accounts, we don't have credit cards. So will you join us? And I was like, if there is one thing we have, it is credit cards. So yes, we will be there. And there was, we got there, and there's a whole bunch of high school kids, because high school kids know very well the barrel of the gun down which they are staring. Also, they were somewhat sprier, so they were at the head of the march. But at the back, there was a bunch of us from this nascent Third Act, and somebody had a big sign for us to march under that just said, fossils against fossil fuels, okay? So all the kids who saw it were like, yes, right on. It turns out that when young people talk about climate anxiety, yes, they're talking about their fears about the climate, but I think in most cases what they're really talking about is the fear that they have been abandoned to deal with this on their own, okay? And so it is incumbent upon us to stand behind them. And we do that every day at Third Act around the climate and around the democracy. Those are the two things that we're sworn to protect. The final thing I want to say is that though this is economically pragmatic work to do and scientifically necessary work to do, it is also extremely beautiful work to do, this work around the sun and the wind. Humans have a deep, visceral connection to our local star, the most charismatic object in our corner of the universe, even if it's the one thing that we can't look at directly. We don't know how prehistoric people thought about things exactly, because being prehistoric, they failed to write them down, but we do know that every pile of rocks they left behind, like Stonehenge, all point to the equinox or the solstice, okay? We know that the minute that humans started making myths about the world, started explaining the world to each other, the very first thing that they had to explain was, how does this thing rise over here in the morning, set over here in the evening, and get back over here in the morning? And so the world is filled with wonderful stories about giant emus swallowing the sun and vomiting it up and come sunrise, and on and on and on. And those things hold for us still. I obviously took the title of my last book from George Harrison. And it turns out that Here Comes the Sun is, if you ask the people at Spotify or someplace, by far the most downloaded song in the Beatles' vast catalog. Twice as many people a day listen to it as Let It Be or Yesterday or something, which is actually kind of a good joke on Lennon and McCartney, that, you know, George Harrison got the reason for that is because it's a beautiful song, but also because it's very optimistic at some level and connects in some deep way with who we are. When we were doing Sunday, we had to come up with a playlist of music for Sunday, because that's what we do now. And it turns out that the people doing it were able to come up with hundreds and hundreds of great songs about the sun. Every musician worth their salt has done a great, I mean, Stevie Wonder's done 3, you know, I mean, it's just fantastic. It's a lot longer than the list of great songs about fracking, okay? And we should take advantage of this deep connection to try and remind people of what is possible now, that there still is great beauty and meaning possible in this world despite it all. I got to go to Rome in September because the new pope had called a gathering of people to mark the 10th anniversary of his predecessor, Pope Francis's wonderful encyclical, Laudato Si, on climate change. And it was great. The Pope, as people are now discovering, turns out to be a completely normal older American. If this guy showed up at your Thanksgiving dinner, you just think your bachelor uncle had dropped in, okay? And thank God, and his absolutely plain-spoken response to our president over the last few days has been some of the most important theological work anyone has done in 100 years. And some of it's just straightforward. I mean, he said, when the president said, "I'm going to wipe out your civilization," he said, that is unacceptable, which was the right word to use in that case. And some of it's just funny. reporter was asking him about something that the president had written in his social media site, and he just said, "They call it Truth Social. That's ironic," he said. Were I the president, I would take a hint and back off in this particular fight. But in any event, over there in Rome, Pope Leo said, "I'm going to do all the things that Pope Francis was doing around the environment. We're going to stick right with the project that he laid out in Laudato Si." And then he said, "Later this year, we're going to flip a switch on this big new solar farm that we've built outside of Rome, at which point Vatican will become the first fully solar-powered nation on planet Earth." And so when it was my turn to get up and talk, I said, "Thank you very much. That is excellent." And it provides us with precisely the mantra, the slogan under which we will need to fight for the future in the years ahead. And I leave it with you in this beautiful ecclesial space. What we need is energy from heaven, not from hell. Thank you all very much.
Can I say, I told you so? He does not disappoint. Every time you hear him, you read him, he educates me, he educates us, and he tells us what we need to do. So that's exactly what we wanted, and that's what we need to do. So thank you so much, Bill.
Hello. My name is Dean Stevens, and I hold forth as Music and Program Director at the Community Church of Boston. It's the voice of God. This whole thing started as an invitation that we made to Bill to come and deliver an Earth Day address. And we said, let's get the other churches of the Back Bay involved. And the culmination of it is us right here together. So I say, congregations of Boston, let's keep this up and be part of a powerful movement of social change that's so needed right today. These are two songs that are anthems for Earth Day that we sing at Community Church, both by local songwriters, and I will go over the chorus for you line by line so you can know what to sing. Shout it from the mountaintop. Shout it from the mountaintop. Write it on the wall. Write it on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. Answer the call. Answer the call. The song is written by our own Deborah Silverstein. Oh, she went to retire somewhere south, but she was our songwriter for a long time. We have a little bit of a echo there. Let's see if we can, maybe I'll just move away a little bit. In the Milky Way, on a spiral arm, our solar system. This is no false alarm. Heed the call and listen. Shout it from the mountaintop. Write it on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. We're coming around a few times. Forest green and ocean blue. Bay bathed in starlight. This is our only home, our cosmic birthright. Shouting from the mountain top, write it on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. Forest green and ocean blue, bathed in starlight. This is our only home, our cosmic birthright. Shouting from the mountain top, right on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. Billions of creatures, great and small, roam across her surface. Believe it or not, we could save it all, or we could shut down the circus. Shouting from the mountain top, right on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. Mothers, daughters, fathers, sons, your hand is on the lever. Our chance will not come again. It's truly now or never. It's now or never. Shouting from the mountain tops, right on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. Shout it from the mountain top. Write it on the wall. The warning signs are loud and clear. Answer the call. Answer the call. I want to thank the Constellations and Jimmy Francis for being with us today. You can hear us tomorrow at the Burlington Ice Factory up in the Burlington Mall. We'll be standing out with lots of hundreds of others. If you're not running, you have no excuse but to be there. Here's the next song. As I have come to know this world,
As I have come to know this world,
from the moment of my birth
from the moment of my birth
until the day my life is done,
until the day my life is done,
I'll pledge allegiance to the earth.
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 'cause I have come
to know this world from the moment of my birth till the day my life is done. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth.
from this world we have grown. Planet body Gaia home. Learning to make peace with ourselves. Realize we're not alone. 'Cause I have
Come to know this world from the moment of my birth till the day my life is done. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth.
We are all made of dust, and we'll all return someday. All of our weapons and our power, not so hard to wash away. 'Cause I
have come to know this world from the moment of my birth till the day my life is done. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth.
As we live, so live all. Flags and countries rise and fall. In the rhythm of this planet, I can hear my own heart call. 'Cause I have come
To know this world from the moment of my birth till the day my life is done. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth. I'll pledge allegiance to the earth.
I'll pledge allegiance to the Shall we all make that pledge? Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill McKibben. And thank you, all you churches who made this happen.
Thank you, Dean Stevens and Constellations. Friends, music will see us through. One sun, one earth, one people. We are going to have a last moment because we cannot take this moment here in this sacred sanctuary, which is peering out at that other domed building that makes some decisions on behalf of a lot of humans and a lot of our nature kin. So we're going to go out there and have one quick moment of blessing on the steps. We're going to take some steps on the steps of the cathedral. So Reverend Joshua, my colleague here, is going to play us out. So we're going to recess with one more song, and then we're going to gather on those steps facing back toward the cathedral. So if you just go back out, there's a slight mist, and just again, give thanks for the sun. We need it. We are still in a drought, give thanks for it. And there's a song that says, I believe in the sun even when it is not shining. So we're going to live into that as we go out into the steps now, as Joshua leads us.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like the tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like the tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be moved. One more time. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. One more time, I'll not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. One more time, shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. We shall not be